Okay. Okay. And hopefully that is me audible. Hi, I'm Eric. I am starting to review movies on YouTube for the short of it, but I've always wanted to get on and try something that I'm not sure about. I like fan editing. This is a process that is risky in terms of copyright, and so I am going to be starting by fan editing the 2003 Daredevil director's cut today. And just to figure out how all of this works, because yeah, the it's 2022 and it'll be 2023. So there's two movies I'm going to be editing. I'm not going to talk about the other one yet, but this one will be 20 years old next year, and so I kind of wanted to dive back into it. Daredevil is my favorite Marvel character, and this movie was my introduction to the character 20 years ago. And so I'm going to be streaming here and uploading these to YouTube with whatever works. I have no idea how much of this is going to be copyrighted. I'm going to go ahead and say, before I get started, that the whole purpose of me doing this, I'm not going to be editing the entire movies on stream. I'm going to be commenting on the movies by editing bits of it, doing work while I'm not on stream, coming back, doing big bits of it, and showing progress with it. And so I'm commenting on and reviewing a movie that I own a copy of, and everything that I understand about fair use should be okay from that standard. So what I did is I took this, and I took this disc, and I used Make MKV, which is a program that's still in a beta test, and pulled a copy digitally off of the disc, which is the best way to get like a sharp source file anyways. And I pulled a 5.1 surround sound track. I then used a program called Handbrake to turn that MKV file into something that can be editable in Premiere Pro. And I also learned recently about how to pull a file's 5.1 track and edit it on different audio tracks. So let me go ahead and go over here and show you what I'm going to be doing. Yeah. So, let me go ahead and... make me tiny. There we go. So you can see your first frame here. I want you to look down here. Whoop. Nope, not moving that. Just making it taller. You can see that I have 5.1 sound channels. So when I play this, I have a channel that is just bass. I have channels that cover audio, like dialogue, that would be your center channel. And you have surround sound channels for your left and right. And you have just so much to play with. I think for someone who wants a movie to be different than it is, the ability to make someone not talk without having to edit out that entire image, I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about in a minute, is huge. And so getting to revisit a movie that is admittedly wildly flawed, there's... it's really exciting to be able to break it apart like this, peel away the pieces that you don't like, and dig into little images and things like that you do like and make something fun out of it. So, I'm going to go back to chat here. So, yeah. Daredevil is a really not great. And I think most of the people involved kind of know that. But I think there's some things it does well. Now, I am not just going to be using the director's cut. I got a copy of the theatrical cut on DVD. I don't have it with me today, but I am going to be pulling some scenes out of that for my idea of how to turn this into a movie that I would want to watch every once in a while. So the things that work to me are the imagery of the character, some of the visual effects, and a lot of the stunt work that isn't wire work that they put into this movie. I don't like when this becomes too much of The Crow, not ripoff, but stealing. Like, the obvious thing is, well, when you go into this movie and you get a certain part, yeah, right here, at a part I cut out, you know that when this character is found by reporters, I've already cut this scene out. Ben Urich lights up a symbol on the ground and it catches fire and 2 Ds show up. It's in the trailer. And it's a direct homage to the Crow's fire symbol being lit up in a way that is not very subtle at all. And the ending fight in a church and the score by Graham Revell, I don't know if that's how you say his name, but he also did The Crow. It's just really clear that Mark Steven Johnson, the director of this, just really wanted to take The Crow as inspiration for doing this movie. And those bits that push it too far don't work for me. Now, a huge thing that I have to point out, that I can't point out without looking this up, is for years I have scoured fanedit.org. And I've seen people, and I've never really gotten to interact with people, especially when I was younger. The person there's a person I owe a huge thank you to for letting me see their fan edit of this movie to tell me would it really work if you piece things together. And I'm going to show you something that they did that I'm working on my own version of here in just a little bit. Let me find... Okay. Okay. Fan edit search. Now, yeah, a lot of people who are doing fan edits are turning the show into movies, which I totally respect, but I haven't watched any of that. Okay, yes, fanfics. A fanfics edit. That's a category of edit. From a fan editor named Uncanny Ant-Man. Huge thank you. This is someone... A lot of fan edits are pretty... not to say this in a negative way, but I can't think of a better word right now, but amateurish. There are a lot of people who will say they've turned like a day scene into a night scene, and mostly they've just lowered the brightness and turned it blue. Or there are people who will claim to have made all these different tiny little edits to a shot to make it move in a different way or feel a different way, and it all just feels faster. It's really hard to explain without watching one of these, but Uncanny Ant-Man took this movie and ripped away all of the voiceovers, all of the cheesier moments, like a satisfying moment that I'm going to do here, which is pull away the playground fight, and he managed to find workarounds to have like certain thoughtful moments hit and have it just be a straightforward story about the investigation of a court case, Daredevil meeting and having a romance with Elektra, and him squaring off facing a Kingpin. And so it's a kind of a straightforward, bare bones version of the story. But he also managed to like slip in clips from Elektra and the Forbidden Kingdom to give you a little bit of an opening credit sequence that shows he was trained by Stick, and sort of replace some scenes. And what he did was really smart. And even though his edit was done, it was released in 2013, so that'll be 10 years ago next year. He actually put in some early 2000s music. You know, there are these needle drops in here. You have Evanescence all over the place. And he replaced a lot of the score. Sorry. He replaced a lot of it with just different music still from the same era that I thought worked really well. So I am going to take some ideas that he used, but I don't want to just do that bare bones story. I want to do something that incorporates some of the old theatrical cut and kind of strings together something about faith, the character's faith, because in the theatrical version of Daredevil, he's already regularly meeting this priest character, but in the director's cut, we see that he's not doing that yet, and he meets him. So I want to put a little bit of a stronger thread in there of that, and I want to see what I can do with some of the pieces from both movies. And really, fan editing is just about, like, take it, rip out the pieces you don't like, leave just the pieces you want to watch in order, and then try and make it coherent. So I'm going to show you a little bit of what I've already done here. Okay? Yeah. It's that. Oh, these shots. Okay, this is an example of color correction, so I'm going to show you this. Alright, now what this typically looks like is this. See that snap? So for obvious reasons, I wanted the character's red suit to pop a little bit. So what you see typically is this. And that's very muted, and so what I did is just kind of played around with the Lumetri color thing, and I pulled some of the red up, and it actually decreased some of the contrast on the image and maybe turned the skin tone here a little bit too red, but I think with the rest of the environment, I felt like that city actually looks a little bit like the posters for the 2015 show, and I was pretty happy with it. So I kind of took this template, and then what I do is I just kind of copy the effect onto subsequent shots, and then play with the different levels and things like that, and pull them around until everything looks like it's matching, it's the same. So this is one of the first things I'm taking from Uncanny Ant-Man. I'm doing a different color than he did, but I agreed that by and large, all of what's seen from Daredevil's perspective should be red, just to play on that. That's just something I want to see. He says it's because that's typically how it's portrayed in the comics. I've seen that differ by what artist uses it. But this is some more color-corrected stuff that I changed the sequence of. I wanted to get right into where Daredevil squares off with this character in a bar. And then I'll get to the next thing that I'm borrowing from Uncanny Ant-Man. Okay, so what happened right there is typically the rest of that shot shows him, the rest of that shot right there lands here. And he flips around. But it's, I'm sorry, I'm sick. But it's very obviously CG. The character moves all over the Uncanny Valley. Whoa. So. There he is. Boom. And we go into Josie's bar. Now, next thing that Uncanny Ant-Man pointed out in his editing of this, which I thought was really smart, is you do not need any of the first court case where you meet Ben Affleck and his hair is a little too ruffled and they're prosecuting attorneys rather than defense attorneys. I don't necessarily know if they're always defense attorneys again in the comics, but he kind of pointed out that it's bizarre for Matt Murdock and Foggy Nelson to be in the prosecution side of things. But here, you get all of the exposition that you need in just a few lines.
Got a lot of nerve coming in here after what you did.
Didn't you hear? I'm innocent, baby.
That's it. Really simple. He did something horrible to someone. You know, bartender, you have that, so it's likely someone in the service industry, which it was. And, you know, he's in trouble. The Kingpin has gotten rid of him, and yeah. We get right into the thick of it. And this shot right here is a pretty big deal. So, let me just turn down the desktop audio. The first way that you're introduced to Daredevil, I'm not going to have the flipping in front of it by the end, it's right here. And I think that's a really cool way to see him for the first time. Now, typically right here, he asks him a question. What do you want? And then he says, and you can kind of see his mouth move right there at the beginning. Justice, right there. He says the word justice, and it's the cheesiest thing in the world. But because, and I can show you this right here, because I have the dialogue track separate, I can let that image linger a little bit, and then later I can do something really drastic if I need to, which is I can just take this little thing right here, pause this image, turn that into a mask layer, and keep his mouth from moving, which is insane, but his head does move a little bit, so that'd be hard, but not that hard. Right there, he says justice. So instead, he just immediately... Bam. And so he goes on, and by the way, the Daredevil director's cut was an R-rated one, by the way, so not for crazy reasons, just because of the violence and stuff, so warning for anyone who's watching this. Yeah, this scene, it becomes so obvious that there's a stunt double in it. I love it. Look at that guy. That not Ben Affleck. I really like this bar sequence. This action sequence is where I wanted to start playing with things. Like the red vision and the color correction. So, again, the color correction is here. You'll see how this looks if I shut that off. It's very subtle, but particularly when he's on screen. Look at that pose. You can see everything was much bluer, green, that sort of bleached film sort of color. So I'm keeping things a little earthier, a little more red fire. Okay, so I can't play too much because I don't want to get, again, copyright strikes too hard. And I want to show you how the, this part, I love this part right here. The sound design there really works, and pretty soon here, just that shot to me, like, that is one of the things that was so cool and edgy about Daredevil when I was a kid, because Spider-Man had just come out, and it's like, well, who's this guy? And swinging and flipping all over the place. All right, it's right here. So watch what it's like when you take. Well, actually, watch what it's usually like. Okay, ready? So that's what that's normally like, and this is what it's like red. That is just so much cooler. Now this is, again, a more orange-red than what was in Uncanny Ant-Man's edit, but I'm also leaving a couple of things that he didn't leave in this sequence, because I think it's worth going a little farther to know that it's in pursuit of a specific target. So when I got here, yeah, he follows that character out all the way to here. I had him strike once that we understand how he's using his powers to kind of pursue people. And then I have the scene end on this shot. Because what else do you need once you've been introduced to the character? Right there. So, this right here is the first time I tried to use a mask to cover something up. Now, if I mute this, you can very much tell that when they were shooting this at one point, Daredevil had sort of a bandana type cowl, and they left in shots in the director's cut. When there's a lot of things about the director's cut that they just didn't really care to remaster the footage or something like that. I don't know. But you can see that right here, the bandana is hanging down. So one of the things that I did was apply another layer that has a mask in it, right there, and I just kind of took it and keyframed it and shifted it all around the back of his head, and it took me a little bit. It took me like 15-20 minutes, but to be honest, with the end result, you can tell that it's there. But by the time you get towards the end of the shot, you really... It's not invasive. It's a little bizarre that there's a blur there. But hopefully the idea is that, like, in that moment, you're not really thinking about it. And if someone didn't point you to, like, why is that so blurry? You could think that it's, like, glare from the fire or something like that. But yeah, so I left in this shot of him going in pursuit, and then just him running, and he falls down the stairs, and there he is. I took away a shot of him jumping from the building on the opposite side of the street. So it's like, here he comes running out of the thing, and then Daredevil's in pursuit, and he goes, whoop, and then he jumps down off the building here while the guy's running away. Don't ask me. Okay, this is a very bizarre situation. But again, with that red, I just thought that was really smart. I thought that really worked. And yeah, then you meet Matt Murdock like this. And there are a bunch of other little things that I'm going to do. But for today, the last thing I'm going to do is point out one more thing Uncanny Ant-Man did that I thought was really made this work, which is I'm going to delete this scene. And this to me is the whole joy of fan editing. So here we go. Right there from that shot. So it ends here. So I know technically I could end it one frame forward, but I always like to leave like one frame so that I don't accidentally end up with single cell frames of unrelated scenes. It makes it very jarring. Like your brain will always notice if there's a shot in there that makes the whole thing feel off all of a sudden. But let's find out how long this scene goes for. Oh no, he's late to court. And then that's where you meet Wilson Fisk, but he put different music to that I really appreciated. I'm going to be using some of the score from the 2015 Daredevil. And so we'll see how that goes. But just, it's this simple. So let's see how long this sequence is. We go from 38 minutes into the movie to 41 minutes in the movie. So 2 minutes of your movie can give it such a terrible reputation. But there it... Where's delete? I'm not... Well, yeah, I'll just cut it. Boom! Now, we're going to see this. You have this intro to the Kingpin. And here's this, is what I'm looking for. Oh, yeah. Okay, so he left that the same. I couldn't tell if he had sped up the footage or what, but... Oh, hello. Whoop. Okay. See how long this goes for. This looked very red for a second, but I didn't think that was... Okay, so let's find the end of this. Yes, that's right. Coolio co-starred in this movie. If you don't remember that, then you've only seen it in theaters or on DVD. No, not Coolio. Oh, no. Oh, yeah. Ooh. So, that's me getting red. Okay. Alright. Take this, drag it, drop it. And what we have to do here is we have to blend the audio so that this flows smoothly into that. So I'm going to see what it sounds like. And then you're going to see the punchline of the joke that Uncanny Ant-Man came up with. Okay, that's not too bad for today. Yeah. So what happens is he meets her, and he goes to follow her, and he gets her name. That's the whole point of the reason they fight in the playground. And then Foggy's like, where are you going? He's like, don't be late. Immediately zoom, and for a humorous contrast, he's apologizing. And you know pretty much everything you need to know. It's definitely better than watching the scene. And so, yes, I don't like that we really like understand who she is off screen, but you know, it's better than what we have originally. So, yes, I'm gonna owe a lot of thanks to Uncanny Ant-Man, but I am gonna go my own direction with my own edit, because I don't really need to replicate his work, because his work is awesome. So I may take one of the needle drops that he did, but I'm not sure about playing that. Now, just as a little thing, I'm working on this. There's this awful shot where Daredevil runs and jumps onto the front. Well, I'll show you what it looks like. Okay. So you guys, if you remember, Daredevil like runs right at the motorcycle, jumps up, kicks him off in what looks like PlayStation 2 graphics, and you know, which is pretty good for 2003. But that shot is just insane. Like the idea of just him hobbling up the street like that, like this run right here kills me. Where he's all in that tight leather and doing this all up. Like, it's so bizarre. And there he nails him. So the idea was that you cut in footage of him from later in the movie. He draws his weapon, and I'm going to have to put in another reaction shot of Bullseye for this to make sense, but essentially you can tell what happens is instead, when he arrives on scene, he arrives swinging off the rooftop. And, there you go. So, this is the kind of thing that I'm working on, and this is the sort of streaming that I want to do, where I can take requests, I can do different things. One of the things I'm going to be working on is edit of Star Wars Episode 2 that I think is more drastic and more effective than anything I've read or heard of online. I don't think anybody has had the idea that I had for it. And I have already done a lot of it on an old video editor and have saved that. So I'm going to get to see some of the stuff that I've done before. See how I still feel about it. But yeah, this is the movie. I'm going to chop it down into a movie I like out of a huge fandom for Daredevil. One day I will share my collection of this whole thing. But, I've done fan editing for a long time. I actually started in high school with the Star Wars prequels, as I think a ton of people do, where you have 2 and 3 put together, just crammed together. Try and edit out the parts of 2 and 3 that you don't like, the Plinkett reviews or a whole thing, and just kind of see how it worked. And I have a little bit of... I actually have that still saved. I have a lot of old fan edits saved. And I've done a lot of things over the years. I, one point, crammed Iron Man 2, Incredible Hulk, and Thor together into, like, an easier-to-watch thing for a lead-up to the Avengers. And I have done Green Lantern. I have turned, in later, when I had better software, I've done the Hobbit trilogy as one 2-part movie, like with a disc 1 and disc 2, as if it was an extended version of, a theatrical one. I have, until like the first one was called, well, it's all called There and Back Again, but, I think a lot of people have a fan edit of The Hobbit if they're a fan editor. I've done a version of Batman v Superman where Superman lives and all of Doomsday is cut out. And I think the ending of that is really effective. If I can show this and I don't have a bunch of copyright stuff, I'm gonna show that, because I am really proud of how that turned out. And it's a very weird saying that, because I didn't do like any of the work to give myself the footage and stuff like that I'm working with. But I think that's kind of the cool thing about fan editing, is it shows appreciation for things that normally people pass over and don't think twice about. And that's kind of a big thing if you know some of the other stuff that I do online on YouTube, on the Music City Drive-In. I run a podcast called This Film Not Rated, with co-host Curtis, and we just try and avoid the whole super objective, easily digestible sort of review thing. So yeah, I've done a ton. I've put the Matrix 2 and 3 together. I've taken a run at Watchmen, the fourth Pirates of the Caribbean movie. I did the second and third when I was younger, but I ended up actually getting rid of those. Fun fact, did you know that in The Matrix Reloaded, you can remove the entire freeway chase sequence and just cut from when the characters drive away in the garage with the keymaker straight to a voiceover of Morpheus talking? Like, you just cut Neo flying away from the Merovingians and cut to a voiceover of Morpheus talking that night, then there's zero consequence. Nothing happens in that scene that changes anything later in the movie. And it's a great sequence, a great action sequence, but it's another cool thing that you'll hopefully find out with me about fan editing, is you can tell a story. Like, there's a lot of things in movies that just don't need to be there. And sometimes they're there just because they're enjoyable in and of themselves, like that freeway chase scene. But sometimes you get to see what the story is like, and you get to different emotional beats quicker while another one is still affecting you, and it changes the entire experience of watching a movie. So I am going to kind of log off now, and I'm going to see how this works. And I'm going to try to put this up on YouTube. So thank you all, anyone who watches this. And yeah, maybe I'll get to chat with people and do this at a reasonable hour for where I live sometime soon. So.